There we are. Okay, good evening to all the viewers. Can anybody actually hear me? Unfortunately, I've been having problems with my laptop this evening and I can't use the camera on it. It says it's already used by another application, which is dire. But, I never claimed that anything on this channel was professional, so there we are. Oh, we've got 3 people joining in already. I will just join in myself on another account so I can sort of monitor the questions. I've had to. Carl Taylor, hello. Mr. G, good evening, sir. I'm just going to come into this on another account. Mr. Saxby, good evening, sir. I'm going to just go into this on another account so I can keep a tab on the sort of things that go live. Because if you're just on a phone, it's very, very difficult to keep an eye on what's going on. So if we just go onto my laptop and use one of my other accounts, then we'll be able to keep. Yes, here we go. We'll be able to keep an eye on what's going on. Excellent. I can see myself and it seems to be working. That's wonderful. Right. Okay. So we have currently 7 people in the live stream. That's wonderful. Welcome. The first 2 live streams I did, which were, I think, last year, were dire. Nobody could hear anything. The sound quality was dreadful. It kept cutting out. I just abandoned doing live streams because they were a problem. Hello, Jonathan. Good evening. All right. Does anybody have anything they want to start off with, or do you want me just to start? Because I've got a few things I can say, but if you've got things to put in the box, then by all means do it. Well, yes, the quality is a lot better. I'm using the phone to do the stream and sort of propping it up on the table, and then I've actually got the laptop in front of me so I can see the chat a bit more easily. So I've got 2 running. Is the MG5 a good budget car? That is a fantastic electric car, and I thoroughly recommend it. Watch the full review if you haven't already seen it. Did you watch the Hubnut live stream this evening? Mr. G asked. Yes, I did. I'm about halfway through it. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I have watched it. So yes. Mr. Coleman. Good evening, sir. I have watched your alpha video. It was very good. I always enjoy Mr. Coleman's videos on his channel. Please have a look at the Alpha 90 latest update on Roach Mechanic's channel if you haven't already seen it. Hello from Bavaria. Oh, well, that's wonderful. I have visited Bavaria. It's a wonderful place. I very much enjoyed it. Simon Henderson, does it look like a roomy car? What car are you referring to in that? I'm not actually in the car today. I don't. It's very difficult to do live streams in cars for various reasons. Oh, yes. Paulie says, good evening. Good evening, sir. Good evening. It's good to have so many people on the stream. How many have got? 18. That's a lot more than we had on the last one. Yes, Mr. G, we are breaking all records for today. We certainly are. Certainly are breaking all records for today. Mr. Quirt from Planet Auto's on as well. The MG5 is roomy. Yes, it is very roomy. It has one of the biggest boots of any electric car, the MG5 EV, actually. It's actually bigger than the boot on the MG HS. Anything you think was missing? I think it's a question really of the MG5, as I said in the review, which I recommend you all watch if you haven't seen it. That actually, you have your sort of expectations met. The car's not aimed at vehicle enthusiasts. It's not aimed at people who want expensive high-end cars. It's aimed at people who are very, very kind of, desirous of an electric vehicle, but they don't want something expensive. They don't want something complicated. The chap who actually bought the car in the video that you would see on the channel, he switched his 2002 LDV pilot van for an MG5 EV. That's the sort of person we're sort of looking at, and he really loves it. Actually, I won't tell you his name, but he he looks like he's put that to good use. He's, started using it for his business and things already. It's the sort of person, maybe a taxi driver or somebody who actually needs all the space in it. The sort of person who, doesn't buy most of the electric cars at the moment. Um, Yes, Mr. Saxby, I have heard about Mitsubishi and SsangYong, and the talks have collapsed. That came through a couple of days ago. So SsangYong, UK operations, and the Colt Car Company, which is Mitsubishi UK headquarters, will not sort of come together. Yes, Mr. Quirk, we're getting inquiries. That's a point that actually came in to do with the roof bars on the MG5 EV. Just after we finished filming the review. I've had somebody comment on that already. I honestly don't know enough about that to be able to give an answer. At the moment, I haven't got a clue. I don't think MG themselves have commented on that particularly. So Carl, I have a Leaf and a Soul EV at the moment. Yes, I haven't driven either of those. I've driven a Hyundai Ioniq, and I've driven a Renault Zoe, and I've driven a BMW i3. I haven't tried the Leaf or the Soul EV. Climate timer, yeah, there's no climate control in it, but I don't really like climate control myself anyway. I don't think that's a major thing, but some people will. Simon Henderson, what do you think of MG residual values? They're on the whole not the best. I mean, the cars are quite cheap anyway. So that's sort of one thing. But yes, I was actually talking about this with a friend of mine who's considering buying an MG3 at the moment. But for for a Fiesta versus an MG3, I know that in terms of technology they're a little bit apart. But if you think about the of a top of range MG3 versus a basic Fiesta, they're actually quite a long way apart. So the basic design of the MG3 dates back to about 2010 on the Chinese market. It's not the most modern car, but I actually really like it. We had one of those for quite a long time. We had 2014 MG3 1.5 style for over 3 years. We only got rid of it in February this year, and actually it was a pretty good car. The facelifted one's even better. And they come with a nice long warranty, lots of equipment. A lot of people don't need everything that something like a Rear or a Fiesta or a Corsa or anything would offer. They don't need that. Yeah, they're cheap to start with, but they do lose value. That's just the way that it goes, unfortunately. Trab. Good evening, sir. Yes, good evening. Paulie, were you impressed by the Skoda you reviewed? Well, you're going to have to wait for the Tweed Jacket Christmas special to find out, because I'm not going to tell you about that. Mr. Quirk, yes, the MG3. I've really missed the way that drives. Hydraulic steering is very rare in a modern car, and the chassis set up for sporty driving. It's quite a firm ride in one of those, but it's got very, very nice steering. James Martin on the JM on Cars channel actually reviewed that car in April 2019, and he loved the steering in it. He didn't like an awful lot else about it, which is fair enough, but he really liked the steering actually in that. If you look at JM on Cars channel MG3, you'll find that. That was ours. We've also had it on the Furious Driving channel and also our own one. And Andy Armstrong. I love your reviews. Have a good evening. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind. It's very, very kind indeed. We've got another review coming up tomorrow morning, and then 2 more as well this week. Mr. Cox, I believe it is. I think he uses a different account from the name. Hello, Mr. Lloyd. Well, good evening, sir. So yes, do the rest of you have anything else you want to talk about? Mr. Coleman, CV boot on the Rover 45. Yeah, that was a really hastily done video. Mr. Coleman suggested to me I should film it, and I just basically got the camera out, and what you see is what happened. I used to use the pause button to edit that. It wasn't really edited, and actually it turned out okay. It was raining and windy, and that phone, honestly, if you don't use a microphone on it, the sound quality can be really bad. So actually it was all right. Quite a few people liked it. How are you? I'm fine, thank you, sir. Thoughts on a failed sort of reverse takeover between the Colt Car Company, Mitsubishi UK, in other words, and Sony UK. I don't really know. It's too early to say what's going to happen with that. It's Mitsubishi, I think, generally are going to sort of disappear from this market and a lot of other markets, and it's a shame. But the SsangYong reverse takeover would have been quite a good thing, I think, but they just haven't worked out. I'm sure they'll try to find another way around that. I'll just have to see what happens. Jonathan Bramble again, love the review on Mark III Escort, design way ahead of time. Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the other competitors that were on the market in 1980, then it sort of was. I mean, it's similar to say that the Mark I Astra that came out about the same time, 79, 80. A lot of other cars, you know, the sort of Japanese cars, a lot of them were still rear-wheel drive at the time. So it was. I mean, it's not my favourite car. I much prefer the Maestro, bit biased, or the N13 Sunny. When you look at a Mark IV Escort, N13 Sunny is probably a better car than a Mark IV Escort. But there we go. Mark V Golf GTI. I've never driven one. I have driven a Mark V General Golf, but not a GTI. I prefer probably a post facelift for it, just the way that it looks. But that pre-facelift 406 V6 I drove was absolutely amazing. Yeah, unfortunately, Mr. Quirk and Mrs. Quirk and my lady wife and I were going to meet up in Lancashire on the 27th to do some sort of general japery and automotive hijinks, and it's not going to work out because the government have decided that we're not allowed to do it. So yeah, that's just what's going to happen, and nothing we can do about it. You'll just have to sort of cope with my face talking in the car for the week instead. Simon Henderson, do you think our Rover ST1 could be a viable present-day driver? Well, I do know somebody who's got a Rover ST1. It's a really nice one. It's actually in the shambolic shuffle that I did at the BMC and Leyland show at Gaydon, and it was in the row that I was parked in because we came as a convoy. I'd really like to do one of those on the channel at some point. It could be if you're very handy with you know, mechanics and things, but someone like me, probably not. It depends how good you are with the sort of you know, mechanical things, because they're quite old cars now. Sing S emission zones. How many more years will petrol cars be on the road? I think they'll be on the road for quite some time. It's just whether or not you want to pay for maybe increased tax, and maybe you know ultra low emission zone charges probably will get more and more. Yeah, unfortunately, that's just the way that it is. And I've been saying this for well over 2 years now. But the ultra low emission zones are coming, and they're just going all over the place now. Birmingham is the sort of latest one that's confirmed. Yeah, I mean, I don't think petrol cars will disappear anytime soon. They're going to be away for a rather long time. It's just the taxes on them will probably increase. Thomas Harrison Lord, do you have a good time at the Bristol Classic Car Show? Well, yes, I did a Champions Shambolic Shuffle at that. There's parts 1 and 2 on there. I thought it was quite good. Yeah, it was a good show. Good weather as well that day. Ian O'Connell, would you ever review the Mark 1 and Mark 2 Mondeo? Absolutely, yeah. Planet Auto, yes, ST1, love to do ST1, of course, first one of those in the new Avengers and the Professionals. It was actually the same car. In the Professionals, they stuck a bit of tape on the number plate, so rather than MOC229P, it was MOO229R, which is very clever of them. British Leyland supplied that car for both series. Have you ever driven a Maestro Turbo, says Trapoli? No, I've not. I've only driven one Maestro, that's a Vanden Pla. Mr. G, my neighbour has a 1992 Polo, which is out for new, and it's covered 70,000 miles. Well, I've driven a Mark II facelift Polo like that. It was a G40. That was a Christmas special in 2019, and I find it a little bit cramped personally. I mean, when I was younger, it wasn't so bad, but they are a bit cramped. They're also very basic, and Mr. Richardson Furious Driving, literally, I think in the last 24 hours, has uploaded a review of a standard Mark II facelift Polo opposed to G40. G40 is quite different, and it's got larger tyres and firmer suspension, so it's a bit harder to drive than a standard one. But the one he reviewed had something like 45 horsepower, and the G40's got well over 100 horsepower, so it's a very different prospect. It's not my sort of thing. They're very basic. Even like, you know, the G40, you can only get electric windows if you wanted them as a dealer fit option. You couldn't really get electric windows. You couldn't really get power steering. You get used to things like that, but then just not really my sort of thing. Yes. Jack Walsher, yes, Gladys, indeed. Yes, Harry. I did think it was your mother's account. I've just actually mentioned that previously. Right. Yes. Goodbye, Mr. Quirk. Thank you. That you know, your live streams are so good. Johnny Briggs, can you recommend a Trabant repair facility in the North London area? I know who that is, and the answer is actually no. What tier are you in? We're in tier 2. because we're in Hampshire, but we're the sort of middle of Hampshire, so we're tier 2 at the moment. Um, Harry, Forza Fiat Seicento. I've never driven one. I'd like to. I'd like to drive a Seicento. Maybe Mr. Miller might let me have a go in his at some point. I don't know. We are trying to meet up, Mr. Miller and I. It's just been very difficult with what's been going on this year. He wants to have a go in the 45 V6, and to be honest, who doesn't? But yes, I'd like to have a go in the Seicento. Mr. Matt Richardson from Furious Driving. Good evening. It's been quite a year. It has indeed, sir. What would you say is the best car you've reviewed all year? The best sort of classic one. It's between sort of the E-Type and probably the Alpha 90. The Alpha 90 is a very difficult car to drive. It's very difficult, and the E-Type for it is also difficult in a different way. But my gosh, those were exciting. In terms of the other one of the best cars I actually reviewed was the SsangYong Corando. I did on the channel. That's a fantastic car. The MGHS, the first one I did was last year, so I can say this year. That was a video that's not done very well on the channel. I mean, it was a diesel, which don't know why, but we can't talk about those. So that was a problem. I want to review a petrol one really, but unfortunately, the SsangYong stuff doesn't do particularly well on this channel, and so it's not really worth us going and doing more of them if they don't do well, because that means that it costs us even more money to make Tweed Jacket reviews on them. So that's a problem. That was a fantastic car, though. It was really good. The MGHS plug-in hybrid was good. The MG5 EV was a surprisingly good car. I very much enjoyed that. Chippers. First of all, I really enjoy your channel. Well, thank you, sir. Are you planning on doing another Santa Pod challenge next year? And if so, will it be the same channels or new ones? Oh, gosh. Back in March, as you know, we were all going to go for it. We had, I think virtually all the channels from last year and some more were going to do it, but it just happened really quickly. But we couldn't do it, and I got rid of the car I bought for the challenge, which I really liked, but we had had 3 cars at the time and nowhere to go, so we had to get rid of it. I'd love to do another one, but I just don't know when it's going to be possible. At the moment, I don't know. And yeah, I'd love the same channels to be, but it will depend on, who wants to do it again and, who's available. It will depend. But there we go. Trabelli again, 97 Mondeo 1.8 or Vectra 1.8. Mondeo, I've driven a 97 Vectra 1.8. I didn't like it because it was too uncomfortable. Mr. Andy G, I'm in tier 4, boo-hoo. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was hoping to do a job on the 2nd of January in London in tier 4, but I hope I can still do it. I think I can, but it just depends on what my client wants or not. I'll have to see about that. Chipper, see some of my favourite YouTubers are present here too. Yes, we've got Mr. Richardson Furious Driving, got Mr. Coleman, Roche Mechanic, Mr. Quirk from Planet Auto's been on here as well. Yeah, Furious Driving. Yeah, the E-Type was actually the 1,000 subscriber special. A lot of people haven't watched that, which really annoyed me at the time because Mr. Richardson and I put a lot of work into that. We got the drone out of things and went down to this lovely classic car dealership in the New Forest, and we did a really good job of it. We sent it to Mr. Franks, who is the best editor out of the people I use for editing, and nobody watched it, which was really, really annoying. There you go. Then the day next year, a few months later, did really well. So my channel's very strange. I don't understand, but there we go. Harry, would you have an MG3 or a Polo? Oh my gosh, it really depends. The MG3 is a really good car, but so is the previous generation Polo. My Seat Toledo was based on that Polo, and I have driven one, and they're pretty good. It's just the MG's got a really long warranty, so it depends if you're ready to like a 2020 MG3 or it's like a 2013 one. It just depends really. I don't know why I'm 11. I find channel fascinating. Well, to be honest, when I was 11, I was into this sort of stuff. So there we go. Mr. Richard wants to keep his Volvo. Well, he can keep it. The regulations were sort of cancelled. Mr. Seabrook was going to bring his City Rover, but obviously that didn't happen either. He was going to come and do it. We all had people lined up to do it. So there we go. Mr. Willard from the Matt's Beamer channel. Good to see you going live. Yes, we are, sir, and we're doing our best. You know, do you think the 2003, 2009 XJ was British XJ? I don't really know an awful lot about Jaguars, to be honest. I've not tried an XJ. I've done an X-Type, and that actually was not a bad car, but they suffer from a terrible, terrible cell rot, as Mr. Coleman will tell you. So you know that's a bit of thing to watch for. But one I drove was really nice. I'm not driven one of those XJs. I can't remember what model code they are. Is it X350? I don't remember. Perhaps I'd like to drive one of those. Do you ever watch The Gaffer? Yes, I've seen the title sequence for The Gaffer, and I've seen Rover P6. I've not watched it properly though, unfortunately. Dan, oh yes, hello, sir. The day you next year. How about the Bluebird? Yes, the Bluebird is definitely on the cards for next year. Absolutely, sir. The next year, the manual one, that was really popular, and so was the automatic one. I'm probably the only person on YouTube who's reviewed but 2 next years within a couple of months. There you go. Harry, my mother and father have a 2005 Polo and a Suzuki Splash. I've actually driven an Agila, which is very similar to the Suzuki Splash, and that's actually a pretty good car. But they're pretty decent, those actually. 2005 Polo, that is, if I get my marks right, that's a Mark 5, although it's sometimes called a Mark 4. The post facelift ones are my preference on those. And also the 1.2 55 horsepower is a bit slow with those. Some of them are nice though. Danny's Nissan fanboy. He does like his Nissans. What was your favourite car or family member had growing up? Well, as I've said on my Maestro video, my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, had 5 Maestros, so I quite liked them. What's this all this formality about on the channel? It's just the way I speak. If you've ever seen me in real life, this is just the way I speak. It's just the way that it goes. Drew A3 Leon. Over the last year, what was a car that you were looking forward to reviewing and was disappointing? Whew, that's a difficult question, that. Ooh. Yeah, that's very hard. I've driven so many cars this year. Gosh, I'm just trying to think. There was definitely one of them that I found very disappointing. I just don't remember what it is. I'll have to come back to that. I can't remember. I can't think at the moment. Harry, my mother had a Vauxhall Mariva, very dull but huge inside. Yeah, the Corsa C based Mariva is a bit dull, but they're not so bad. How many comments on one of your videos would be too many for me to reply to? I don't know. I've had very long conversations, but some of the comments are really stupid, and I just, you know, to be honest, I can't be bothered with some of the people. I mean, some of the comments I just remove because they're just silly. And anybody who leaves personal insults on a YouTube creator's channel, they should just be willing to have them removed because personal insults are just not on. And so I have had some of those, and they just get removed. So there we are. Dream Free Car Garage, I can't sort of think about at the moment. I have too many. What was the worst car I've ever owned in terms of reliability? There's probably 2. One of them was the Astra Twin Top. We did way too much work on that, really, for what the car was worth. Which, you know, was a bit of a shame because it was sort of fun. The first Rover 45 that I had, that wasn't very reliable. It was a 2004 1.4 Club SE, and the car just had so many issues that the post facelift 45s are just not very good. They have lots of electrical issues. They have just you know, they're more prone for head gasket failure for some reason because they use plastic dowel pins in them. It just wasn't great. The Astra wasn't great. The Dolomite I had wasn't great, but then of course we didn't expect it to be great. So there we go. So Harry again, what was your favourite Vauxhall post 2000? I quite like the Amiga. I mean, I you know, Mr. Coleman has had an Amiga, and we drove one on the channel, but I quite like the post facelift ones for some reason, even if empirically they're not as good. But I do like those. Ed Perkins, we love your videos. Thank you very much. Jonathan Meeson, how many cars have you owned? Well, the thing is, I've done a video on how many cars have I owned this year. I just have got to add 2 to the number that's on there, and out. I can't bother to count at the moment. The Granada will be making it at appearance on Christmas Day. Oh, that's excellent, Mr. Coleman. I look forward to it. Have you ever been to Dagenham? I haven't been to Dagenham. I've been to Brentwood, but not Dagenham. Yes, Ford, and they made lots of Fords there. Jonathan, no, absolutely not. I love the ZS180. That's a fantastic car. The one that Paul has is amazing. It does about 100 miles a year, and it's absolutely fantastic. But the suspension is just too hard. There's no cruise control. Driving's too extrovert for me. It's fantastic, but it's just not for me. Elias Lamar, is there any car you previously owned and regretted selling? Maybe a car you buy still back on the road. Yeah, I think so. The Dolomite that I had was interesting, although practically I couldn't keep it. The MG3 we had, bizarrely, my lady wife's not really into cars or anything like that. And actually, when we sold the MG3, she got quite sad about that. And I understand that. I mean, that's again, I'd happily have another MG3 at some point. Right, Trabberley, what series of professionals was your favourite? I think either the sort of second or third series, actually. Depeche Chem OD Music, sorry if I got that wrong. What do you think of new generation MGs rigs? Well, they're fantastic, brilliant. Easily recommend virtually any of the current MG range to anyone. Fantastic cars. Harry, my mother had a Rover 25, but she thought the head gasket was going. Yeah, same sort of area, probably a facelift one. They're not the best engineering, those. Like to drive my Honda Concerto. I certainly would like to drive a Honda Concerto. I've owned two R8 Rovers, so I most certainly would like to drive it. Ed, can you send me an email? It's japl745@hotmail.com, and we can sort something out. I'd love to drive a Honda Concerto. Absolutely. That's right up my street. Mr. Woolard, which YouTubers is planning to meet in the new year if you're not still locked down? Well, certainly, you, sir, if you're actually in the country. Mr. and Mrs. Quirk, of course. And then, obviously, anyone from sort of Santa Pod. Trying to meet up with Josef Mashraf on cars, trying to do it for ages. Also, Josh from Maverick Motors. Also trying to do, obviously, Mr. Miller from Miller Corner. So yes, a few. In the Rovers, I prefer the IB5 gearbox over the R65. The R65 is a good gearbox if it's low mileage, but they go really floppy in my experience. I have had one with an R65 high mileage and it was terrible. Danny, yes, indeed. You own 3 Nissans and the manual Nexia, which was surprisingly popular. I really enjoyed driving that car. I enjoyed driving the Auto as well. I enjoyed driving both of them. Just a real sort of kind of bucket list car for me, which sounds ridiculous, but this is my channel and that's what we like. So yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the automatic one too. Suzuki, yes, Suzuki Splash, very reliable and cheap to run. They're quite basic, aren't they? Yes, look at the YouTube profile. Yeah, Jonathan. If you look at the two MG3 reviews I've done, one we had and also the 2019 facelift, I go on about the engine an awful lot, a massive amount. And yes, it needs that 1 litre engine out of his ZS automatic and a 6-speed gearbox. Absolutely. LS400. I'd love to drive an LS400. I've never driven one yet. It'd be very good. Mr. G, does your YouTube hobby ever cause such a to you and a good lady wife? It does sometimes, because we spent a lot of money on the channel. Like, we've spent thousands of pounds on the channel, and we get back from the average revenue, which has been dropping ever since the second lockdown started. Actually, we get back between about 5 and 10% of what we put in it. So this is why with Tweed Jacket Reviews, we've decided we're going to do specials only next year and just cut production so much because we need to save money. And a lot of the money of the early days, it came from my wife giving me some money to do it. So that was sort of one thing. And also, I can be away a lot, and she doesn't particularly like me doing that. But that's just the way that it goes to film the cars. So yeah, sometimes it does. Mr. Wood, I was thinking maybe you and a well-known should make a happy Christmas video where you all. That's maybe a bit complicated, I'm afraid, Mr. Woolard. So I'm not sure that's going to happen. Harry, what's a 45 a day driver? It likes to use a lot of petrol. It makes a fantastic noise. and it's a bit cramped in the back, but it's actually really good things like shopping. I mean, the boot's massive on that car, and it's quite narrow, so you can fit into spaces. But one thing is the rear visibility is dreadful in it, and the parking sensors are intermittent on it, so sometimes they don't work. But I really like driving it. It's a lot of fun driving that. We keep having to do things to it, so it's not the most reliable car I've had. But you know, there we go. Ed Perkins, I've got a diesel BMW. As you know, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. It depends what it is, really. It depends what sort of BMW it is, actually. Uh, Elias Lumby, where did Patrick Cars come from? Oh my gosh. I think I talk about this in a very old video on the channel. So like, how did I get started in my car sourcing career or something? I think I talk about that. Um, have you had any job in the automotive sector? No, I never had a job in the automotive sector before becoming an independent consultant. I had a few jobs, but none of them were car related, so I never got paid for doing anything to do with cars before. Harry, no diesels. Well, yeah, we don't talk about diesels on the channel. Stephen Smith, I had a um, a Rover 420D. I presume that's an HHR one. P-Reg, fantastic. 150,000 miles. Yeah, the L series is quite a reliable engine, actually, generally, and the HHRs. What do you think is the best hatchback of the late 90s to early 2000s, a Mark 1 Ford Focus? Oh, Mark 1 Ford Focus is probably the best one, but for me, I'd have to have a Mazda 323 or perhaps a nice Rover 45. First breakdown, what car was it? I think it was probably the Triumph Dolomite. That was I broke down at home, I think, that one. Uh, Jonathan Meeson, were the post-Project Drive MG Rover cars much worse than pre-Project Drive ones? Yes, 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 absolutely. The back of the facelift 45 and 25 Rovers aren't very nice. I actually quite like the back of the facelift 45 and 25. I had one of those myself and I thought it was really nice. Um, Alexander C. The big diesel motor 350 horsepower. Is that a 5 Series or something? At Mr. G. Have you been stuck in the snow? Yes, I have actually. I got stuck in my, was it 2011 Chevrolet Cruze 1.6 LT at the um, at my mother's house, and eventually it was on a slope, and we had to sort of push it up onto the drive, and I was okay. The traction control didn't really help at all on that. 206, no, 206 is not a good car, I'm afraid. Sorry, not great. Um, Mazda 66, yeah, I actually had a Mazda 66. I had a 1998 Mazda 626. I took Santa Pod in 2017. I quite like those. Right, Jonathan Bramble, great content. Always enjoy the reviews, bringing all channels together, like Furious Driving, where one title fits all. Well, we kind of did that with Santa Pod actually. That was bringing together quite a few channels, and you know, we did sort of things together. Um, it was really good. Unfortunately, we're going to do it again, but you know what happened in March. Good evening, Mr. Langstaff. Good evening, sir. Depeche Mode music. Do you tend to charge a set fee finding cars? I know, I charge an hourly rate plus mileage. I think that's only fair, really. Um, Alexander C. 335D remat. What type of 3 Series is that? Because I have done an E46 on the channel, and my mother owned 2 of the next generation after that. They were both Tourings, and they were actually both diesels. On the 206, a paint decided to peel body. A lot of cars of that era have peeling paint. First mobile phone. The first mobile phone I had was a Sagem MC920 in 2001. So there we go. Always had weird stuff like phones and cars and things. Have you ever watched the 2001 Saloon Showdown? Do you mean the one on Top Gear? Yes, I have. I have seen that, yes. The E series. Which E series BMW is that? Did you buy any car magazines as a child? Yes, I did. I used to get Classic and Sports Car, Classic Car, What Car, and Practical Classics at various points. Jonathan Meeson, they were just bad. Like the first one, nobody was on it, and the sound was absolutely terrible, and the connection was bad, and it was just appalling. Second one was appalling as well. It kept cutting out, and it was dreadful, and it didn't work, and I just gave up. Mr. Joshua Langstaff, Maverick Motors. Yes, you are plugging your first video, but I don't actually care because you're doing Rover 800, so I don't care if you plug that on my channel. You're very welcome to plug that on my channel. Yes, I'm looking forward to watching that myself. Would you review vans in the future? I have actually done a couple of walkarounds on vans. It's not really my kind of forte. I have driven kind of a few of them, and yes, they were equipped with a type of engine that we can't talk about on this channel. Um, I'm watching this on my iPhone 5. Yeah, they're not bad, those iPhone 5s actually. They're pretty classic. My lady wife had one of those. E91 Touring. I think my mother's BMWs were E91 Tourings as far as I remember. There was a 2005 one. It was a late 2005. It was that generation. And then I think the other one was a 2010. One of my friends actually owns that, and they were both powered by the non-recommended fuel. Mr. Woolard, how did I know that you were going to enjoy hearing about an E91? It's all in the channel name. Ian O'Connell, if you were to pick executive cars for the mainstream brands, which would you rather have? Rover 800, the Senator, or the Scorpio? That's a really difficult choice. I think I know what Mr. Coleman's going to say to that. He probably picked the Senator. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Probably the 800. I'm not sure. Have you ever been done for speeding? No, I haven't. E46 or E90? I don't know. I drove E46 and the rear legroom was just as bad as I remembered. Colin, who's one of my regular subscribers, has supplied a lot of cars to the channel, and that was one of his. And it was quite a high mileage E330. It was, yes, it's nice, but I think I prefer the E90, E91s. Yes, non-recommended fuel. Yes, it's better than the last two live streams. Have I bought a car from auction? No, I haven't. No, I haven't bought a car from auction, unless you're talking about eBay. Right, I've got to have caught up with all this sort of stuff. It's going better than Peugeot 406 Coupe. Unless it's the forbidden fuel, then preferably a V6. Then yes, 406 V6s are fantastic cars, absolutely brilliant. 406 Coupe, very nice looking car. They're still quite cheap actually. They're not expensive cars particularly. So you could like a mint one. Very much would like to try one of those. Jonathan Mason, what fuel to put in? I just put standard unleaded in it. I've spoken to Mr. Coleman about it before, and I just sort of put standard in it actually. Mr. Coleman, yes. So Senator A and Senator B. I'd very much like to try both of those actually. Mr. Coleman is rather an expert on cars. He made a list recently of all the cars he'd had, and it went on for quite a few pages. T-Boss 70, yes, I'd like to try one of those. White block engine, stay away from the forbidden fuel, but yes. Can I repeat email address? Yes, I'll spell it phonetically for you. Juliet Alpha Papa Lima 745 at hotmail.com. If you look at the sensible second-hand reviews or no budget reviews, you'll see my email address in all of those anyway. I have one if you're still doing Peugeot 406 Coupe V6. Please send me an email, the Lake House. I'd like to drive that very much indeed. How often do I do chippers? How often do live streams? I haven't done one in a long time because I had many terrible problems the first time I actually did one. So I saw Mr. Richards a couple of times, and I thought, well, if he can actually do it and do a decent job of it, which he does, I can have a go. Even if the first two were dreadful. Paul Brealey, I love V3000 Rovers. Yeah, a lot of people love Rovers on this channel. I've had 8 of them personally. So had 2 R8 414 SIs, 416 GSI, very nice. 623 GSI, oh, very nice. 620 a TI, yes, please. R8 214 SLD, we'll have to skip over that because that's for forbidden fuel. 75 Classic SE, yes, very nice. That would be the 2 to V6, same in my car. 75 Club SE, 75 2.5 Connoisseur SE, very nice. ZT160 V6, that's the earlier one, and a ZTT 990, just like the one that Mr. Jordan Partridge owns, who you would have seen about on the channel about a year ago. 406 or Laguna 406. I'm not a massive Renault fan, I'm afraid. Mr. G, yes, you will have to have a lie down. If you had to consult the Santa, what would you advise him to purchase? I think I'd advise him to purchase better reindeer food. Jonathan Meeson, never found you a Smart 4.2. I actually have been offered one of those, but the chap sent me an email and I replied to it twice, and he never got back to me, which was a really shame. There must have been some error somewhere. Um, yes. Favorite three car brands. I don't particularly have a favorite car brand, probably apart from Rover. Um, I don't know really. I don't know. What's in the black box behind me? I don't know. Let's have a look. I think that's something to do with we have a temporary lodger at the moment who's out of the country, and I think it's one of her stuff. I don't know what it is. Um, Thoughts on the FSO Polonaise? I don't know. All the stuff I've heard about that's not the best. So yes. Jonathan Rabbit, I thought of doing merchandise. I have thought about it. I don't know if there's a lot of call for it really. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure if there is enough call for merchandise or not. I suppose some of you'll have to let me know about that if there's enough. But certainly, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. Would be a, a, a secret thing that we sort of put on stickers, and we'd all be in the know. Black Boss is for the super secret mission documents. Yes, indeed. Mr. Coleman, of course, has driven virtually every car made since 1960, and so he'll be able to tell you about that. Best saturation. That's quite difficult because obviously there's the forbidden fuel ones we can't talk about, so we don't have those. The 2 litre turbo ones tend to have a bit of a problem with the gearboxes, so that's an issue. 1.4 family zero engine is a bit underpowered, so that leaves the 1.6 and 1.8 petrol family 1 engines, which ones I tend to recommend. I have sourced a couple of Astra H's for clients, and yeah, they were pretty happy with them. You just got to make sure you keep an eye on that cam belt and change the oil obviously regularly, good quality oil, and watch that plastic thermostat housing because that's a pain in those Astra H's and Vectras. Mr. G, what's the car with the best glove box? MG3, absolutely enormous glove box on an MG3. Sony on Corando is not bad either because on the pre-facelift ones you get the secret gun holder from the 1965 film Licensed to Kill, which was a James Bond rip-off, and they have a sort of a Mauser gun that sort of fit in that perfectly. Harry, my aunt has a 1.8 petrol auto Astra H30. Yeah, the 1.8 is quite a thirsty engine, even with a manual gearbox. That's thirsty. Yeah, Ilias Lamari. The E90 is comfortable, better handling, iDrive system, lots of cruisers. Yeah, the engine that's in that diesel one. I can't remember what the code for that is, but it's apparently not the best, shall we say. Mr. Woollard will be able to tell you that because he's a BMW expert. I think it's the N47 engine. They do have their issues. E46. Yeah, there are cooling issues with the E46. The one I drove actually had them, and there are electronics in both of them. I'm not a huge BMW expert. Mr. Woollard will be able to tell you more about that. Will we ever discover the contents of the secret mission documents? I've actually shown the contents of the secret mission documents on camera. You actually can see them in the MG5 review. There you go. Yes, good night, Mr. Trabberley. Good night, Mr. Armstrong. Mine out of sport mode. Yeah, the design models of the 1.8s did have a sport mode. And that was what I had on my twin top. The comments seem to have stopped for now. We'll call it a night because we are doing a question and answer session next week, and I'll be asking for questions for the question and answer session probably on Tuesday. So we will actually be doing another one of these. But there's 34 people still actually on the live stream at the moment. So we will continue if there's anything else to do. Otherwise, I'm sure we can stop this if no one else has anything to say. Don't know why the comments have stopped, but maybe there isn't anything else to say. Oh, Mr. Coleman, I will phone you shortly. Thank you, sir. Okay, Harry? One last one. Go on then. What is your question, Harry? I like the Kia Pride. Yeah. Jonathan Bramble. Yeah. Jude loves the Kia Pride. He's had two of those actually. It's not my favourite kind of car, but it was a very very enjoyable video to make. It was a lot of fun, but my gosh, it went above 60 miles an hour. The whole thing started shaking. I had to turn the camera off. Um, no, I went to look at a City Rover for a friend of mine in 2012, and I drove it, and it is the worst car I've ever driven. That was this, and Elliot, who actually owns the City Rover that we did on the channel, he is going to actually get rid of that, and he's getting another car. So yeah. Anyway, what do you see? Concerto, Roadster, and LS are all free for a drive. Well, why don't you send me an email, japl745@hotmail.com, and we'll sort something out. Best Honda Civic generation. I like the EG Honda Civic. I drove an EG4 on the channel for No Budget Reviews, and that was very good. Matt's been a great video. You need to do these more often. Thank you, Mr. Worth. That's very kind. Two large. That wasn't. I didn't plan that. Ian Seabrook wouldn't have planned that. I planned the day I was going to do this a little while ago, and I don't know whether he was influenced by that. I imagine probably not, and he just decided to do it, and I've been watching some of it. Chippers Top Gear review. Yes, I've drove it. Yes, it was accurate. Absolutely. That's a pretty accurate review. The two main advantages of City Rovers, they're pretty spacious for the size of the car, and they're quite fast. Apart from that, there's really not much more to say. Mr. Westby from Twin Cam's done a review of the City Rover as well, and he wasn't very fond of it. To be honest, Mr. Richardson and I both filmed the same City Rover. A few days apart, but we filmed the same car, and he was quite kind to it, but I think he sort of wishes in a way he wasn't. When will he do another live stream? I don't really know. I'm not really sure. A best pro generation? I don't know. I had a Mark III as my first car. It was a 1998 1.4 CL. That was my first car. I wouldn't say it's the best one. I don't know. The Mark 1 and 2 I find a bit cramped, and also a little bit too basic. I don't really know, to be honest. I can't tell you. I know all the generations of Polo, and I don't know. Possibly the last one was good. The post facelift ones, I facelift in 2014. I quite like those. Chippers, what are your thoughts on the current Top Gear? I've not watched that for a while, since they drove a Matra Simca Bagheera through the jungle. I quite enjoyed that. But I haven't seen much more of it apart from that. What do you think about the Renault Velsatis? I'd quite like to try one of those. I'm a bit scared about the electronics in those, but there we go. I don't know about the styling. I'm not sure. But you did have a nice fully hardened V6 in them that Mr. Coleman, I think, has driven one of those. So yes, worst golf generation. I don't know really. Probably the Mark V. Part of the GTR was quite good. Mr. G, do you ever watch Lovejoy? Not very much, no. My lady wife really likes the theme tune to Lovejoy. Mr. Saxby, do I like Top Gear? Yes, I remember this Peugeot special of that. Excuse me. It really depends what Top Gear that you're talking about. Whether you're talking about the sort of post 2015 one, the current one, the sort of one that started in 77, so it's pre 2001. It depends what era you're talking about, really. Dave Cuss, what do you think about the Veloster? I haven't ever driven one of those. I tried to try one of those. They didn't sell them very long in this country. I think they sold them about 2 years. Another car from that era I'd like to try very much is the Suzuki Kizashi. They're very rare. I saw one of the M3 fairly recently, and I sort of quite wanted to sort of pull it over and see if they would do a review. Do a review, but you can't really do that. I think people sometimes try to follow cars home if they want to review them, and that's a bit sort of stalkish. We actually don't want to do that, really. Yes, Mr. G. Uncle had a Renault Velsatis, excellent. Ford number 208. I've done reviews actually of the 208 and 207. So if you want to know what I think of them, just Tweed Jacket reviews 207, Sensible Secondhand reviews 208. Right. Mr. Howlett, someone was accident. Well, I hope you're enjoying it, sir. You can also rewind it and see whatever automotive hijinks and general japery has been happening on the channel, can't you? Um, Mr. Woolard, the only reason that you want to see what Mr. Woolard is because that's what your surname is as well, isn't it? That's the only reason you want to see it. Mr. Saxby, wasn't the Kizashi only an automatic? Yes, it was in this country. It was a 2.4 petrol with a CVT automatic gearbox and four-wheel drive. Only sold for about a year, I think, on this in this country, and I really, really want to drive one. Mr. Andy G, do you have a favourite tyre brand? Not really. I'm not the sort of person who goes into things like that. Mr. Matt W, I took a photograph of the Black Kizashi a few weeks ago. Why don't you put that on the Cars You Don't See Anymore Facebook group, sir, where I am an administrator? I'm sure lots of people have plenty of interesting comments for you on that. I think there's over 170,000 members of that now. Yeah, Mr. Curry, Mr. Jude Curry, and I are administrators on that group. They're they're very familiar with Cars You Don't See Anymore. Fortunately, A-Class, I've never driven one of those. A friend of my mother's used to have one of them. I don't know. The certain cars, I'm not sure I have a lot to say about them, and probably the A-Class is one of them. I'm not sure I have a lot to say about that, to be honest. Yeah, it certainly was an innovative car, but I just don't have a lot to say about things like that. How do you survive road trips to Dudley? Well, it's not, you know, Mr. Franks and I regularly survive driving around Dudley. It's you know, I've been to worse places in my life than Dudley. It's really not that bad. And the people at Summit Garage are very friendly as well, which obviously helps. You know, they sort of, you know, very happy to provide things for us to, you know, drive around Dudley in. Right. Is that the end of things then? Because if it is, we shall wrap it up. Oh, are you a fan of electric cars? Well, I've just reviewed an MG5 EV on the channel that went up 2 days ago. So, you know, I'm sure you can watch that and see if I'm a fan. Mr. G, Lenny Henry is from Dudley. I believe so. Yes. Dave Cast, do you think we'll get the Citroen ME over here? I presume you mean the car that you know, loads of channels have just reviewed and is a voiture sans permis, the French call them. I don't know. I'm not even. I don't think I'll bother re-engineering that for right-hand drive. It's a very specific niche in France, the voiture sans permis. So I'm not sure they will bother actually re-engineering that. I'm not sure they actually will. Harry, Seat Ibiza or Volkswagen Polo. Um, Gosh, that's a hard one. Probably the Ibiza, but the Polo's also good. Lenny Henry got out of there as soon as possible. Well, the thing is that as I've said sometimes, uh, a lot of the time when we do these modern cars on the channel, they don't do very well. You know, we've done a number of modern cars on the channel, and the MGs are really the only ones that actually do well. We did some Sanyongs, and I've done an Audi, I've done a Golf, I've done a couple of Skodas now. They just don't do very well. So other car brands are available, but you know, you lot just don't seem to want to watch anything of that. So I have to give the viewers what they want, and also to think about the fact that it costs a fair bit of money to film True Jacket reviews, and if it's not going to do very well, then it's not worth doing, is it? You know. Mr. Sean Cook, I clicked on the Rover 620 Furious driving today. Yes, it's a nice looking car. One I had was a very very cheap one. It cost me £320, and it um, wasn't in very good condition. Everyone told me at the time you should keep the car, keep the car. And when I came to sell it, nobody wanted to buy it. So you know, there you go. Mr. Coleman 620, by the way, is a much nicer example. It's a manual. It's lightly breathed on as well, and it's a fantastic car. You can see that on No Budget Reviews, the one that Mr. Coleman owned. That's a much better car than the one I owned. Harry Cox, a preview. I saw a preview actually the other day. It was quite a late one for a Mark 1. It was a 1999, I think, on a V plate. I'd quite like to drive one of those. I quite thought they were quite interesting back in the day. Best one Polo was a late Mark 5. Not complicated and sort of comfy. No, not too bad. Mark one, yeah, they are quite reliable. They are very basic. Yeah, the Mark IV Polo with a three-cylinder is just it's too slow. It's just far too slow. Particularly a 55 brake horsepower one. It didn't look 320, but I assure you, my gosh, there was so many things wrong with that Rover that I had the 620 GS automatic. There were lots of things wrong with that. Everybody said how great it was, but I had to live with that car every day for about 6 weeks, and it wasn't great. Do you like dislike BMW? What did Rover? I don't know. I'm not sure if I hold grudges in that way against car companies really. Mark 4 9N three-cylinder. Is that a pre or post facelift one? The Fox on a Volkswagen Fox. I've never driven a Volkswagen Fox. But that would certainly be in no budget reviews for Volkswagen Fox. Mr. G, yes, somebody used to own a Capri 1.6 laser. 1.6 laser with £15,000. I think if you want a Capri laser with 6,000 miles on the clock, you're going to struggle to get one probably for less because there's hardly any left. But KGF cars do come with a bit of a markup because they do prepare them to a quite high standard. But the thing is, the Renault 21 Symphony that Kelsey Media sold, that was a Classics World fleet car, you would have seen on my channel, was then given over to KGF, and I think they probably overpriced that car a bit. I'm not sure what they did to it, but I'm not sure that the price that they were asking for it was right. I think it was a little bit too much they were then asking for it, because I saw what it was going for on the Classics World website, and you know, I then saw what KGF were trying to charge for it. I just thought that they were trying to take a little bit too much for that. Mark 5 Polo GTI. Ooh, that sounds very nice. Sounds very nice indeed. The bug-eyed. So that's the facelifted one, isn't it, Harry? Yeah, the facelifted one. The facelifted one, or is it the pre-facelift? So sorry, the pre-facelift one with the quad headlamps. No, Ilias, my name. People do this to me all the time. Lloyd is my surname, not my first name. Just so for your information. Lloyd's my surname. No, I'm not getting an X-Type. I don't trust the Silverot. 45 as well. It's just more me than the 75. I like the 75. I like the MG-ZT. I've had 3 MG-ZTs on the channel actually. KV6, and then a K series and a K series turbo, and I do like them, but the 45 V6 is staying on the fleet for a long time to come. There are 90 of those cars left in the country, and I'm going to be the custodian of one of those for a long time. FN2 Honda Civic Type R. I don't know. I don't have a massive affinity for Honda Civic Type R's. I'm sure they're great, but the suspension on that's probably very, very firm, and I'm not massively fond of cars that have any firmer suspension than an MG3. That's about as much as I can tolerate. With the possible exception of the Fiat Panda 100 horsepower. That's a fantastic car. Mr. G, would you buy a Ford? Depends what sort of Ford. I think something like a nice, possibly you know, like a Scorpio Gear or something like that. I quite like. But if it's going to be a Ford, it'll be a high spec one. Aaron D'Souza, hello. It's a SUV. It depends what I'm feeling like. I mean, I got the Sanyong at the moment, and that's a fantastic car. That's an SUV. I like estate cars too. The MG5 EV, which is an estate car, is brilliant. I like both of them. It depends, you know, what you want to do. What is the car you hate the most? The worst car I've driven on the channel is City Raider. There's no doubt about that. Well, before that, it was a Peugeot 207. That was a diabolically bad car. They're really terrible cars. The 207s, they're really, really bad, particularly because they've got the Prince engine in them, which is not the best engine that BMW and PSA ever came out with. Right, I'm just checking. What do you think about Tesla's horrible reliability? I don't know enough about Teslas to be able to comment on that, I'm afraid. But thank you for the question anyway, Aaron. Richard Howlett, how many cars would you have if you could? I don't know, probably quite a lot. I don't really want to say what to say actually. We are only really allowed to at the moment because that's how much space we have, and you know, we have to tax and insure them and fuel them, and we obviously have to pay for them. So Two of them is probably enough for the time being, unless we get to Santa Podcar. 206, 207 or 208. 208, 206, 207, not good cars. Toyota or Honda, I don't know. Don't know, to be honest. I have a Toyota. I have had a Toyota on the channel. I've had a couple of Hondas on the channel. They're good cars, pretty much. Mr. G, Ford gives you more, so they say in their ads. No, they don't unless you pay for it. Yeah, that's probably true. Right, I think we've been on here for about an hour or so, so I think we're going to end it there. If you want to see another one of these live streams next week, then I can do one. The filming plans I had have actually changed, so I do need to actually have another video. So we'll maybe do another one next week if you'd like to see it. We'll do another one of those then. Is it just me who hates the Volkswagen up and Skoda Citigo and say at me? I don't like the gearbox on them. I don't like the 60 brake horsepower engine because it's too slow and the gearbox doesn't want to go into reverse. It's such a pain. I drove one of them and it just wouldn't go in. Mr. Sean Cook, great live chat, flowing really well, great content. Keep it 45. Yes, we intend to keep it 45. You're not selling it, don't worry. Furcan Cavsaw, Escort or Focus, I don't know. I kind of like the really late Escorts, the sort of Mark 6s. I kind of like them, but for different reasons with the Focus. I don't know. What do you think about new Volvos? They're quite good. They're some of the best modern cars, actually, I think. Mr. Coleman and I talk about that kind of thing a lot. Two of my colleagues had Mark 3N 3-cylinder auto decor. If you want to hear it rants about Volkswagen reliability or lack of it, go to Mr. Coleman's channel, Rich Mechanic. He will sort you out. Yes, please do send me an email, Alexander C. Yes, Jipper, thank you, live stream. It worked out fine. Yes, I'm actually sitting in front of the router this time just to make sure. Thank you, Mr. G. That's great. What tier am I in? We're in tier 2 here because we're in Central Hampshire, not East Hampshire. Great live stream. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yes, we'll maybe do another one next week because, of course, a lot of you are now in tier 4, and that sucks. So yes, yes, Aaron, yes. See you in the live chat. Yes, Merry Christmas, everybody. I think we will call it a day there. Does Mr. Coleman do live streams? No, not he doesn't at the moment, but I'm sure he will at some point in the future if he considers doing it. So thank you very much indeed, and don't forget, sensible second-hand reviews will be coming out in the morning, and then we've got an opportunity for you to ask some questions again on Tuesday, and then we'll be recording a question and answer video on Christmas Eve. So yes, it's not a live stream, it'll be pre-recorded, which I prefer. So thank you very much for all your questions, and we'll try to do another one of these next week because it looks like a lot of you have been enjoying it. So I shall see you again soon.